I'm tired of staring at Rob's bald head. Can we get a different camera shot? No, you'll stare at it and like it.
Yeah. Now you got to stare right in his face, which
It's
is
even worse.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Our guest via telephone is Financial Phil McCoy from Ameriprise Financial and the Marius Group of Financial Advisors on Winchester Avenue, Martinsburg. Good morning, Philly.
Good morning, guys. How are you all?
Splendid, Phil. And yourself.
Living the dream, Rob.
Phil, let's talk about your Shepherd Rams. Phil, of course, if you don't know this, played offensive line at Shepherd. Once, Phil was a 6'4", 300-pound offensive tackle for the Shepherd University Rams.
Really?
And now he's
back in the day.
He's slender now, man.
Mm-hmm. How long
that
did it
happens when you have to start buying your own food?
We were just having that discussion in studio.
How long did it take to go from a 300-pound lineman to normal size?
Probably, I don't know, year and a half approximately, that the weight started to come off. And strange enough, it was old strength coach Pete Urish who, as he called it, put me on the fat man plan to keep me out of surgery after I graduated. After I graduated, I was a grad assistant for a while and working closely with him, and needed to shed some weight to hopefully avoid surgery. And he kept beating on me even after I graduated. So I give him the credit. It was his punishment that helped me shed that weight.
Pete was your guy, man. He's the one that drove you through college.
He was and he is. Yep.
Yeah. I think all of us know Pete in this room, don't we? You know Pete, right, John?
I've met him, yeah.
Yeah, Pete's a great guy.
Yes.
And he's one of those dudes when you're kind of out, you just see him. He's just, wherever you're going, Pete is there already. Yeah. Phil, the Rams, I don't know, the transfer portal wasn't kind to them, and neither was the Frostburg offense. That defense could not get a stop Saturday night.
Yeah, I watched it, and I don't know if maybe Frostburg was just impressive, but early in the season, like you said, they got a lot of new faces. And, man, that quarterback was gigantic. He looked like he was Bodwell size. The guy was like 6'7", he looked, and he ran he ran angry. He was an angry runner. But so I walked away not knowing if I was like, boy, it's maybe a rebuilding year for Shepherd or just a slow start, or impressed with Frostburg. I guess probably a combination of both. But Frostburg looked pretty good. And I honestly didn't expect that. Back when I played, we didn't, Frostburg was at a smaller level, and we didn't play them. So, they've never really been on my radar until I watched them the other day. They were impressive.
When I was a freshman at Duquesne, we played Frostburg. It was the last game of the season. It was a pretty good game. Frostburg's offensive line was so gigantic. Even for that era, they were so huge. And I remember we had them by a score, 2 minutes to go in the game, and they literally ran the ball down the field. We couldn't stop them, and they scored. And I never forget that because it's the only 2-minute drill I saw that didn't feature a pass.
Wow.
That's how big they were. They just slammed it right down our throats.
Man. Well, and that seemed to be what they did to Shepherd in that second half, just continually ground and pound. And third down conversions were obviously huge in that one as well.
Yeah. 40 years later,
they
no
always
change.
seemed to be at 3rd and 2, didn't they? It was like, okay, they're going to get a stop here, but now it's 3rd and 2, and it's hard.
Third and 2 is the
hard to
hardest.
stop a big, strong offense from getting 2 yards.
Now, we had my team had a scrimmage Friday night, so I didn't get a chance to see the Martinsburg game, but 28-0 there. Dylan, why don't you put your headphones on? You can clue me in a little bit as to the flow of that game. I didn't get a chance to see the replay either, but that was David Walker's first loss in 80. I think it broke an 83-game personal winning streak for him as a high school coach at Martinsburg. What did you see Friday night, Dylan?
Having some malfunctioning back here with my headphones. I can't really hear you, but I heard enough to know that you're asking about the Martinsburg game. And
yes.
That was a really good Camden team. They had a wide receiver / safety who's going to Syracuse. So is their left tackle. Apparently their coach has some sort of Syracuse connection. But that safety dominated on offense with 3 big plays. Or 2 of them were him. There was another big play with a blown coverage. But I think we'll look back at this one and be surprised that somebody dominated this Martinsburg team so much. But There is going to be some growing pains, I think, with the quarterback especially. It didn't seem like the passing game was very developed, whether that's on the wide receivers or the quarterback or some combination. I think there's going to be some growing pains there. I think they'll be able to run the ball in a lot of other teams, though.
Yeah, and Martinsburg gets Huntington this weekend, and Huntington got shut out even worse by a team from Tennessee. So that means that one very good high school football team is going to be 0-2 after this weekend because there's no ties any longer.
Well, that Camden team was gigantic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when they walked out there, you could just see how big they were. I think this may be a little bit of a down year for the Bulldogs. I mean, they don't seem to have as many really fast guys because
playmakers,
even the guys who were not being guarded by the kid going to Syracuse were not getting separation. So I don't know what's on the quarterback. I mean, we're going to have to see. In the past, we've seen that kid has a pretty good arm, but there was no separation. None of the receivers were really getting away from the defensive backs.
I agree. I was pretty disappointed in the receivers, yeah.
Well, it's a game against a pretty superior opponent, it would seem, so don't overreact.
Well, and last year the whole offense was the quarterback was really, really fast and really elusive. It wasn't that we had, a lot of weapons, a lot of anything. It was the quarterback doing a lot. It reminded me of the year of Malik Watkins when Martinsburg's whole offense was just Malik. And I don't know that the current quarterback has that in him where he can be the whole offense like the guy last year.
Mountaineers against Bobby Moe, Robert Morris from the suburbs of Pittsburgh.
It was a tight game for about a minute or two.
10-3 at the half.
Yeah.
That's more than a minute or two.
It was.
That's a little concerning.
3 straight possessions.
Yeah, 4 fumbles they lost total, 5 total fumbles. And you have to I don't know. You remember when Rich Rod took over the program what was that, 20 years ago, whatever it was, 25 years ago?
Yes.
They didn't start off that great, but he got it rolling within a couple of years. I'm not saying they're going to be going 11-1 again anytime soon, but you don't want to overreact on a first game of a new coaching.
Well, they had a half of growing pains, and then they started rolling. And Gerard Bowie got in. He played some.
That's always cool to see.
And Barrick.
Yeah.
Jacob Barrick
he made a play.
did too, yeah.
I watched a lot of that game back on replay afterwards because during the game we were driving up to Frostburg. I was really impressed by the second half. Nico Marchiol looked good. Cam Vaughn, in particular, the wide receiver transfer from Jacksonville State. I was actually really impressed. And Jaheim White is an incredible running back. So I liked how they looked once they stopped fumbling the ball.
Sure. Now,
fumbling always makes you look worse than you are.
Got to have the ball to score with it. Phil, time for your NFL predictions. Right? Steelers open up their season. You're a big Steeler guy, as am I. And who's first and foremost, what's the Steelers' record at the end of this year?
I'm going with, and I think I've stayed pretty consistent with this, although I get a little bit more excited as the year goes on. I'm giving the Pittsburgh Steelers a 12-5. I think their offense has got something going with these 3 tight ends.
Dylan's already shaking his head and laughing at you.
Dylan can hang up now. I told Dylan once the season starts, I'm done with him. But his Ravens stuff. But with that, I think their offense is going to be better than what a lot of people think. That's something unique that a lot of teams can't do is put 3 huge, legitimate weapons out with tight ends. And I know it's like, what's a tight end? Let's think back to Gronkowski and Hernandez. But I'm going to give the Pittsburgh Steelers 12-5, and they're going to win the AFC North, Dylan.
All right.
Yeah, Hernandez.
The Ravens will go 12-5, sure. Pittsburgh?
12
I can give them 9-8. Just Mike Tomlin.
12-5.
They don't go under 500.
That's that little
Rodgers, got a little bit left, I guess.
There we go.
Aaron Rodgers is a really precise passer. He may not have the mobility he had to stay in the pocket that long, but throwing to tight ends, that's a 1.5 second pass. I think the Steelers are going to be better than last year.
I do too. 12-5.
Let's talk money, Phil. I heard this as we got through the month of August. This is how we stood year to date. The Dow was up 7%, the S&P 10%. The NASDAQ was up 11%, but this morning it is a different story as we start September trading. The Dow futures are down 0.75%, S&P about 1%. NASDAQ futures are down 1.3%, and these numbers have been dropping all morning. Phil, what is going on?
Well, let's start with it's September, and we're not much into technical analysis, so hypocritically, I'll throw this out there, that historically September is the worst month of the year. So August and September months, although we kind of reversed that trend in August of this year, but over the weekend, and this is a bit of confusion, but there is a simple explanation to it. But it was announced that the court said that, hey, these tariffs can't be imposed by one person. They have to go through Congress. So it's throwing some doubt on what the tariffs currently set at and those that have gone into effect. So it's thrown some doubt in. So that would suggest that the markets are saying we like tariffs, and tariffs are giving us a boost, and that's not necessarily the case at all. But because of this, now there's some uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty on what the tariffs will be. Will there be tariffs? When will they? They're not going to be paused, so they can allow to go through until the appeal goes through. And the legal process of it, I'm not the legality of it. I can't really speak to that and the time frame of it. But it does insert uncertainty into our markets. And we'll roll that over to the Federal Reserve, which it seems to be that, and which is true, I guess, that I always find my way back to the Federal Reserve. But if you are the Federal Reserve Board and you're debating whether or not rates should be cut, if there's uncertainty in the waters, if there's uncertainty, the more uncertainty that's in the water, the less likely you are to cut rates. And maybe it doesn't impact the initial cut in September, but those future rate cuts could be impacted due to this. While we started to absorb, okay, these are going to be at least the range of tariffs, and this is how we'll move forward. We've seen it they popped into our inflation reports, and honestly, not nearly as bad as what others had thought or predicted. So now there's uncertainty. Our markets don't like uncertainty, and this inserts some uncertainty for the Federal Reserve. So we're seeing a little bit of giving back of what we have had, which is to this point this year, although it has been really volatile. It's been a decent year from point to point. If you go from January 1st to right now, it's been a pretty decent year for most indices. The small caps have been really volatile. Some recovery there toward the end of last month. And, of course, the bond market has had, because of uncertainty with rates, although it doesn't garner the attention of the stock market, has been more volatility there. But by and large, it's been a pretty decent year, and now we've got some uncertainty. We thought we had beaten this, or at least we're on our way to beat this in market speed, where we know what it's going to do, and now there's just more uncertainty.
Let me ask a question. Your opinion, Phil. What do you think? Do you think the Fed should be cutting rates?
Well, I hate to say this because it's going to upset a lot of people, but quite honestly, no, I don't. When you look at in a vacuum, when you look at what inflation is, their target's 2%, and right now it's around the high 2s. And I honestly don't like to give my opinion on this stuff, but I will. So right now it's floating around the high 2s, and in a vacuum, the unemployment numbers aren't that bad. The unemployment numbers are still acceptable. So my bigger fear isn't so much because it's kind of easy to cut rates compared to increase rates. I would much rather have it take longer for more rate cuts than to have to reverse course and increase rates. So that would be my fear. So if they say, hey, we're going to cut rates in September and then again in October, or maybe even more than 0.25%, and then inflation starts to get back up over 3 to 3.5, and the likes of that, because remember, lower rates is going to encourage spending. More spending causes inflation, and then early in next year or by mid next year they have to increase rates again. I think that would be more damaging than to just wait to cut rates. So in a vacuum, with my limited knowledge on whether all the things that they look into, I know that their two mandates are inflation and the jobs market. Cutting rates right now to me seems just a tad bit early, until they see more evidence that inflation is heading back down to that 2%.
I have to agree with you 100%, man. That just makes total sense, because it would, if they bring the rates down, they have to bring them back up. That would cause a lot more volatility, a lot more disruption in the market.
I agree. I completely agree. So I'd rather them start later and be consistent with it than cutting out and have to increase later.
So you mentioned technical analysis, Phil, and I know in talking with you in the past, you're not a big fan of technical analysis, and I know your firm doesn't do it either. But why traditionally over the years have August and September been bad months for the market?
That's a good question, and the answer is probably just coincidence, quite honestly. Most likely it's just simply coincidence and gearing up for the end of the year, so maybe spending slows. You get through the summer and everyone's on vacation, and we're moving about the world and doing this and that, and as you go into the fall months, you stop spending after you go back to school, and that doesn't increase or step back up again until the holiday months or to the Black Fridays and all the special sales that we have in the fall. But most likely, though, it's just coincidence. You know, if you take a set of 12 numbers and throw it out there, you're going to have the worst two, right? There's going to be some that are typically the worst months on average, and you know that normally is just coincidence, but September is one of those. And that's why we don't really trade based off technical analysis. Now we'll go back and look more so from a technical analysis. Remember, technical analysis is just studying what has happened to the markets in the past, you know, during seasonal changes and the likes. But when we go back to look at it, it's more of a, hey, look, this has happened before. Don't get too excited and don't get too depressed based off what's going on, because it's happened before is evidence that it can and will recover, or it can and will fall back down, to kind of keep a steady hand through it all. But that's not trading off of technical analysis. We're most certainly not getting into the month of May. Remember that old saying, go away in May? And I think it just, because it rhymes, it became popular. But we're most certainly not calling clients like, oh, we're going to sit on the sidelines until the end of September and move on from there, because that would be technical analysis. But there's individuals that do it. Hopefully there's not planning firms that do that, but individuals that will do that because they believe that they'll fall during those months more so than not.
You talk about the spending, Phil, and you know, obviously we're moving about, we're vacationing, we're doing things in the summer. Do certain holidays, obviously Christmas and the holiday season is huge at the end of a year, but I'm thinking if we're just coming off this Labor Day weekend and you couldn't turn on a TV for a week without some Labor Day sale, furniture, cars especially, but others. So how much do holidays like that and especially spending type of holidays impact our markets?
Christmas impacts it quite a bit, but what it does more importantly than what it does for each individual company is it tells us the mindset of the consumer. It gives us real data on the consumer's willingness to spend, and by and large, you know, not individual pockets and not this subset of asset classes or what have you, but what are consumers willing to do? How restrictive are our policies? And we saw that a few years ago when rates went up, and surprisingly enough, people continued to spend. They continued to buy basically at the same rate as they were before, and that was kind of a shock. And we gave credit to our markets not completely falling apart, to a strong consumer, just meaning our consumers just kept a stiff upper lip and kept spending that money, Jack. It didn't matter what the cost of it was. It didn't matter what the headlines were. It didn't matter what the headwinds were. They continue to spend money. So as it pertains to our markets, it gives us some insight to the health of the consumer. Now or maybe I shouldn't say health, but the willingness of the consumer to continue to spend money and how they feel.
Phil, I've always wanted to ask this question. We started talking about the tariffs and some volatility that the court decisions may have and when and how all of that will play out. You say on a pretty regular basis, both with Rob in the early mornings and when you're on Eastern Panhandle Talk.
Thank you for listening early on, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoy it. But you'll tell us companies are going to make money. They're going to find a way to make money if it's charging you a little more or giving you a little less for the same price. So knowing that companies are going to make money, why is there such volatility? Is it a matter of maybe how much they're going to make depending on the things that are going on in the world around us?
Yes, it's how much. If they're not going to make money, then eventually they'll cease to exist. So we know that they're going to turn a profit, but exactly like you said, how much profit is it going to be? And then a lot of the volatility comes from us trying to pick winners, us trying to say, as investors, as individual investors, that's why we say stay diversified, because I don't think you can really pick the winners. But where is the money going to go? Is it going to go to artificial intelligence? Is it going to go to travel? Is it going to go to consumer staples, those things that you must have, the toilet paper and the Procter & Gamble's and the dishwashing soap and the likes? Or is it going to go to consumer discretionary on sneakers and coffee and travel and things of that nature? So where is that consumer's dollar going to go is a huge reason for that volatility. We know that there's going to be a winner as far as asset classes are concerned, but what's that winner going to be? So you'll see a lot of money jumping from one to the other asset class and company to try to determine that. So there's money moving about within there. But what we do know that by and large, not all of them, of course, will make money. That's why small caps are a little bit more volatile, because they're more likely to fail than what large companies would be. But look at it, say, in Amazon. Amazon hadn't kept up with the Magnificent Seven this year, but there's no fear that Amazon's not going to make money. The question is, how much money are they going to make? So then we start to dive into, in some cases, the political environment, or what's the tax structure, and how much money can they make, or what are they going to have to do? Tariffs, how will they deal with tariffs? When is that going to start making its way into the product, and how much, and how much are consumers willing to pay for companies to still make the same profit margin as they did before? And that's the big debate right now. By and large, what will companies do with tariffs? Will they still make the same profit margin? If there's a 15% tariff, does that mean that product's going to get 15% more expensive, or will they stay at the same price and then the company will make 15% less, or will it be somewhere in the middle? And the one that determines that is the consumer. What are they willing to pay for? If they'll pay for 15% more, rest assured it will be 15% more. But if they won't, then you'll see that start to drop or maybe get back to the price that it was before, and they'll now have to change how much of that what I'm producing, this widget am I producing, how can I make it less expensive so I can sell it for the same price but still make the same money that I did before.
What gets me is they're charging more and giving you less.
Yeah, in a lot of cases they do. Over time they do. I mean, you look at some of the vehicles, even you pay for the premium package, and then you go to take your finger on the grills of these premium vehicles. They're plastic. It's just a more shiny plastic than what the base model would be.
I always look at Girl Scout cookies, and I look at how many used to be in the box and how big the box used to be. But I look at that as a positive, because I don't want to become a fat guy. I mean, the less
tag on Girl Scouts, man.
They are. I mean, their cookies are so addictive, but the boxes are so.
A lot of governors at the Fed judge inflation on the size of the Girl Scout cookie box.
Well, that is the constant. And Oreos. I mean, if you look at the price of a box of Oreos, the price hasn't gotten that much more. It's just you're getting half the Oreos you used to.
Yeah, shrinkflation, and there's a term for that, and you see it a lot with changed packaging. You'll get a new look, same great taste. But look on the back on that label where a serving size used to be 8 ounces and now maybe it's 6 ounces, or you may have gotten 12 servings per box and now you're only getting 8 servings, even though they're the same size. But it's a new box and it's got a weird shape and it fits in your refrigerator or your cabinet better. And really all they've done is shrink down the size of what they're giving you for the same price.
Bill, how do we reach you for more information today, as we are just about to run out of time for your segment?
Unless you're going to say bad things about the Steelers, Dylan, you can reach us at 304-263-4343 or stop by and see us with an appointment at 1270 Winchester Avenue right here in Martinsburg.
Thank you, Phil. Have yourself a great day.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil.
You can check out Phil each weekday morning at 6:38, replayed at 7:38 for 2 minutes on that day's business news, market setup, and such.